Hello everyone, my name is Jyoti Upadhyay and welcome to my channel dedicated to provide quality guidance for History Optional. Now today we are going to cover the topic of the Neolithic Age, for which V. Gordon Childe had said that this was an age where man made himself, and it is based on this observation that in the year 2023 UPSC had asked this question, that Neolithic Age represents a revolution. So we are going to discuss this question eventually, but before I begin, with the prelims round the corner, there must be one question in the mind of all of you, that is whether we should stop our optional preparation and resume it again after prelims, for those people who are going to appear for prelims this year. But then let me tell you, this is a very wrong line of thinking. The reason being, you are students of history optional and history forms a major chunk in the prelims paper. Now what you should do right now is, on my Telegram channel, I put daily targets. Do join my Telegram channel for notes and a structured approach for, history optional preparation. Okay, coming back, I upload daily targets. Now, what happens is these daily targets are designed in such a way that you can cover them in 2 hours. 1 hour you're going to take to complete the target, and 1 hour what you can do is you can listen to the video, and whatever points you have missed out, you can add to your notes. Now, this is very important. The reason being, if you prepare like any other person, then how can you expect to get 300 plus marks? If you want to get good marks, you have to do the effort. Just mugging up the notes that are available in the market is not sufficient to get good marks, right? Now, let us begin. So do go and join the Telegram channel. Also, whatever I'm going to discuss today or what I have discussed in my previous videos, notes are available over there, right? So let us begin. Now, the Neolithic Age. The first question that we are going to discuss is, the Neolithic Age represents a revolution due to significant changes that took place during this period. Examine. Now, the reason I am covering the Neolithic Age through PYQ is to tell you how to actually write a good answer. See, if you look at this particular question, it has 3 segments. First thing is whether it was a revolution or not. Second thing is the question asks you about changes, and the third thing is that it says examine. So see, there is a difference when a question says examine and when a question says critically analyze. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? When it says examine, it means what? It means that you have to mention about the changes and you have to mention the impact that those changes had systematically. On the other hand, if the question would have said critically analyze, that means you would have to definitely mention these 2 things. Along with that, you would have to put up your own judgment, right? You have to have your own opinion in a balanced way. So वो यहाँ पे नहीं पूछा. It has just said examine. Now when you write an introduction, since I told you it has 3 portions, so ये तीनों portion क्या है हमारे introduction में reflect होना चाहिए. I have written a model introduction here, but remember the best introduction is going to be written by you. Now see, what I have written here is that the transition from Mesolithic to Neolithic age marks a watershed moment in human history. तो हमारा वो जो point था that it was a revolution, we addressed that point. Next I have written is, characterized by the transition from hunting gathering to food production, it fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with nature, society, economy and culture. तो इससे क्या है, इससे we addressed the second thing that the question asks, that is changes. तो यहाँ पर क्या किया, यहाँ पे हमने acknowledge किया that yes, there were these changes, और उसमें से what we used the main thread that led to all of these changes, that is humanity's shift from what? From hunting gathering and foraging to ultimately food production. ठीक है, जो आगे चल के सारे changes का बेस बनेगा. That's why इसको मैंने क्या किया है, I've written it in this way: transition from hunting gathering to food production, which fundamentally altered all of the following things. Now the next that we need to write is कि we know कि ये जो चीज़ वहाँ पे बोला जा रहा है Neolithic Revolution, we know that it was V. Gordon Childe who had said this particular statement. और ये बहुत difficult नहीं है identify करना, because anyone who teaches basically Neolithic Age will definitely tell you that this period is called a revolution by V. Gordon Childe. ठीक है, तो next what I have said is, this transformation has been widely termed as the Neolithic Revolution by V. Gordon Childe. और हमारे क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया था examine. That means we also have to say कि even though V. Gordon Childe had called this period as a revolution, but there are some scholars who refute his view. समझ में आया? तो इस तरीके से क्या होगा, इस तरीके से our introduction is going to be a balanced introduction that is going to signal to the examiner that we know what we are going to say. समझ में आ रहा है कि ये इमेजिन अ पर्सन हु इज जस्ट बिगिनिंग कि हाँ नियोलिथिक एज जो है उसमें ये चेंजेस हुए थे, या फिर यू नो व्हाट द वर्ड रेवोल्यूशन मीन्स, एंड स्टार्ट्स राइटिंग एंड यू राइट दिस इंट्रोडक्शन, that the perception that the examiner has about these two candidates is going to be very different, and you will be able to write this introduction only when you have studied the topic properly, मतलब समझ के, ठीक है? So this is what I try to do on this channel. Okay, so do subscribe to this channel if you have not. Next what happens is, next we are moving to the body. अब body में क्या लिखना है? Body में two simple things. We have to write about the change and we have to write about the impact of that change. Now our body has to be structured. सिर्फ अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन से लिखने से काम नहीं चलेगा. अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन लिख के यू आर रेजिंग द बार. नाउ द एग्जामिनर इज एक्सपेक्टिंग यू कि आप उतना ही अच्छा बॉडी लिखोगे. सो दैट मीन्स यू हैव टू स्ट्रक्चर इट, एंड द वे वी स्ट्रक्चर इट हैज टू बी इन सच अ वे, जो इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स है दैट वी हैव टू राइट ऑन टॉप. So here in the Neolithic age, it all starts from shift of humans from being products of nature to having more control over nature. ठीक है, what exactly do I mean by this? If you have seen my previous two videos, that is on the Paleolithic and the Mesolithic age, you would see there I have talked about this term called environmental determinism, right? So what exactly environmental determinism mean? It means that environment is determining the life of the humans. For example, Paleolithic period में there was a ice age like condition. So humans were very, उतना सारा resources available नहीं था, so humans were very mobile. They were moving from one place to another very frequently. Right? So that impacted their way of life. How? Go and see that video. Now we are not going to discuss that. Next what happens is, in this particular period, that is in the Neolithic period, you know, man gradually starts producing food. So when a man starts producing food, and here food means two things. It's not just agriculture, it also means domestication of animals, because food included both. Food included both plants as well as basically animal products, right? So this brings to what? This brings to a sedentary way of life. This gives a chance for, you know, surplus production. We are going to see how things follow. So this is the base that holds everything together. So we are going to begin by writing this. So यहाँ पे see what I have written is, V. Gordon Childe considered this transition from Neolithic from Mesolithic to Neolithic as a revolution based on the following changes. ठीक है? So now we have introduced our question, we have introduced our answer, and then we have formed a link with the body. Next what I have written is, first socio-economic changes. तो इसको if I wanted, मैंने social change अलग से, economic change अलग से, फिर the next I have done is technological advancement, तो tool अलग से लिख सकते थे, religion, art, we could have done it, you know, बड़ा बना सकते थे आंसर को. बट यहाँ पर क्या है, वी हैव वर्ड लिमिट कंस्ट्रेंट. तो हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा, वी हैव टू लर्न हाउ टू राइट कंसाइज एंड कॉम्पैक्ट. ठीक है, सो जस्ट follow along, you will be able to understand what I mean to say. For example, I have written socio-economic changes. So here, shift from food gathering to food production, that is agriculture and domestication of plants and animals, led to food surplus. Because in the Mesolithic age, gradually क्या है ना कि people had developed a sense of season. They had gradually developed an idea of observation कि किस तरीके से which plant grows well in which season, which plants grows well in which area. So because of that, the chances of crop failure had decreased. मतलब agriculture जो है ना, they had become quite advanced in agriculture, and as they advanced in agriculture, there was food surplus. Now when we have food surplus, it means that all the people then no longer need to engage in agriculture or farming. Surplus है, इसका मतलब क्या है? A person who has surplus can exchange it with another person who maybe has to offer something else, right? So I hope you're understanding. What happens is, food production gave rise gradually to food surplus. When we had food surplus, it means that not everyone in that particular band or group needed to depend on agriculture for food. So this increased the scope to move to or to explore other areas. For example, trade. For example, pottery. For example, there are some people who even became priests, dedicated their thought process to what? To their thought process to understanding the various phenomena of nature. And here what they did is, whatever they could not understand, they termed it as something related to supernatural. Now we exactly don't know that whether the concept of God emerged at this particular time or not, but definitely we know that there were certain thought processes. For example, when we look about art and culture, तो वहाँ पे हमें दिखेगा कि understanding of symbols, for example mother goddess, if we see in the Chalcolithic period, gradually हमारे पास क्या है, symbols of fertility, mother goddess, hump bull. So all of these show that there was some symbolism, some abstract thinking also going on in the mind of the people. So इसका जड़ कहाँ है? What is the root? The root is moving from food, this hunting gathering to food production to food surplus, right? And this is the argument provided by V. Gordon Childe. So this same thing इसका मैंने बता दिया अभी. So food surplus meant that not everyone needed to farm. Some could even become potters, tool makers, priests. And pottery से related a very important thing is कि Mesolithic period में we do not find pottery. Exactly what I mean is कि हमें refined, well polished pottery नहीं मिलता है. We have crude handmade pottery. Because remember, why do you need pottery? Mostly pottery is needed to store food grains. At that point of time, if you look at the kind of pottery that was available, it was mostly to store food grains, ठीक है, और मे बी टू कंज्यूम फूड एज सच. तो ये जो स्टोर करने वाला फूड ग्रेन्स है, दैट मेड इट कंपल्सरी टू हैव सम यूटेंसिल्स इन विच यू कुड डू दैट, right? So there is also the emergence of formal pottery in the Neolithic period. Now that I hope you are understanding that why he used this term that man made himself, because the changes that we see today, uska fundamental basis kahan pe tha? The fundamental basis of this lifestyle was laid in the Neolithic period. Now we see that not everyone is engaged in the occupation of farming. Base kahan pe hai? Base is in the Neolithic period. The starting point is in the Neolithic period. So that's why it has also been termed as a period when man made himself. So if, for example, next year or next to next year, you get this statement that according to V. Gordon Childe, this was a period when man made himself, I hope you will be able to connect the dots and answer. Okay, now moving along. Along with agriculture, it also meant that people required to, yes, now advent of agriculture also meant that people required to stay in one particular place. In the Mesolithic period, there was no formal agriculture, यानी कि large scale पे agriculture as such नहीं हो रहा है. अभी भी हम pre-agriculture, proto-agriculture period हम बोल सकते हैं, ठीक है? When we have it in a crude form, still formal agriculture is not there. So what happened is, compared to the Paleolithic period, लोगों का lifestyle had become less mobile. They started moving from one place to another less frequently, but still they needed to move from one place to another in search of resources, in search of food grains, in search of hunting for animals. But now in the Neolithic period, what is happening, because they are doing agriculture, so they have to stay near the place where they are doing agriculture. Since they are domesticating plants and animals, they also, it's very difficult to carry all of these animals to different places every time. So now, especially because of agriculture, it required people to lead a sedentary and a settled lifestyle. Now the thing that happens with sedentary and settled lifestyle as well as with food surpluses, this will lead to the concept of private property. Mesolithic period में still we had the concept of community property coming up. Communal property मतलब the kind of ये, there were several groups, right? एक particular group तो था नहीं, there were several groups. So each of these groups had taken control over one particular area. So that identity was there in the Mesolithic period, that this area is ours, right? Now what is happening is, with agriculture and food surplus as well as storage of food grains, now people know that this is the food grain that we have stored, and they want to pass it on, to the next kin in their same blood group. So the concept of private property is gradually developing. यहाँ पे क्या है, I have given the example of Mehergarh and I have eventually discussed Mehergarh in details. वैसे तो in the exam hall you do not need to discuss Mehergarh को details में, but for your understanding, ताकि वो समझने में easy हो, या फिर question अगर if it comes in a little modified form, you are prepared with examples, and substantiating your answer with examples is very important to score ultimately very good marks. Okay, now coming from this particular change, the next change that we have is the change in tool technology. Now, if for this I would again suggest you to go and watch my previous video, जिसमें Mesolithic period में, उसमें I have said how there is a transition in tool technology from larger tools to microliths. Now here what is happening, कि microliths are not sufficient. Now what we have is, with food production as well as there is increased population. Again in that particular video I have discussed why there was increase in population. Okay, you can go and watch that. In general the idea is, several ideas are there. For details go and watch that. Here I am just giving you a sense. It is generally considered that with food being more available and with the diversification of, in the Mesolithic period they started hunting and क्या हो रहा है ना, climate is changing from Pleistocene to Holocene, that is from colder climates to more warm and humid climates. So now we have new flora and fauna coming up. The food diversification हो रहा है. Also understanding of some plants as kind of plants that can help recover. इस तरह food भी हमारे पास ज़्यादा available हो रहा है. So we have gradually life expectancy is also increasing, plus fertility rate is also high. राइट. सो इस तरीके से क्या है, पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज हो रहा है हमारा इस टाइम पे, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज यू ऑल्सो नीड इनफ अमाउंट ऑफ फूड. सो फॉर दैट यू नीड एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड. एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड के लिए क्या करना पड़ेगा, यू हैव टू क्लियर द फॉरेस्ट्स. नाउ टू क्लियर फॉरेस्ट्स, microliths or small geometrical tools are not enough. We need proper dedicated specialized tool for this. So now again tool technology is changing gradually, and it is now moving to celts or ground and polished axes. तो इसमें क्या मतलब होता है ना कि now हमें क्या है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल ये एक फॉरेस्ट क्लियर करने के लिए क्या चाहिए, हमें एक्स चाहिए. जस्ट इमेजिन इन योर माइंड टू कट डाउन अ ट्री, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ टूल यू नीड अ काइंड ऑफ एक्स जिसके सामने एक शार्प कुछ एक ऐसा फ्लैट वेपन टाइप होगा जिससे यू कैन जस्ट स्ट्राइक एट द ट्री एंड इट विल कट डाउन. तो उस तरीके से डेवलप करने के लिए उस टाइम पे प्रिमिटिव एंड क्रूड चीजें यूज करेंगे. सो व्हाट दे यूज टू डू इज, let us assume this was made of wood. ठीक है, the handle is made of wood. The still metal had not come into existence, so they used to take stones and they used to ground and polish. मतलब कि दूसरे stone को use कर रहे हैं to chisel and to shape that. And what they are doing is कि here they are fitting it. कैसे fit कर रहे हैं? Here this small, ये जो छेद है ना, this is smaller in shape. So इसको इस तरीके से फंसा दे रहे हैं. ठीक है, so what is happening कि ये समझ इतना इजीली ये खुलेगा नहीं. सो इस तरीके से क्या है, टूल टेक्नोलॉजी इज मूविंग फ्रॉम माइक्रोलिथ्स टू ग्राउंड एंड पॉलिश्ड एक्सेस, right? So it does not mean that this microliths are ending. We still have microliths, we still have hand axes, but this is a new addition that is coming to the tool technology. Along with this, if we talk about this technological advancement, another thing as I discussed is the coming of pottery. Same चीज. Along with that, we have cultivation of cotton. Cultivation of cotton, इसका evidence हमें कहाँ मिलता है? Again, we get the evidence in Mehergarh, right? So यहाँ पे because we have the evidence of cotton, cotton से क्या हो रहा है? And as humans are settling down in one particular place, sense of property and all, and kinship वगैरह develop हो रहा है ना, तो उसमें क्या है? The lifestyle of the people is also changing. So now the concept of covering the body, okay, that is also there, and they discover that there is this kind of raw material जिससे we can weave and we can form cloths. Right? So इससे क्या हो रहा है ना, new occupation of weaving is also being introduced. So with the cultivation of cotton and flax is also a kind of fiber, we have introduction of weaving. Next is also kinship, inheritance. As I told you, ये मैंने already explain कर दिया है, inheritance, communal and private property, they become much more formalized, especially because of that food storage, staying in one particular place and moving from food, this hunting gathering to food production. Next, what we also have is, we also have change in symbols and religion. Remember I told you, because of food surplus, people have time to move to other occupations. Now when people have time to move to other occupations, there was also the occupation of priesthood that came up. Now when the occupation of priesthood is coming, so that means what happens is that kind of proto-religion, belief in the supernatural, gradually the concept of God is starting to emerge. Along with that, there is also abstract thinking. Abstract thinking तो हमारा Mesolithic period से develop हो गया था. What we mean by abstract thinking is, for example, if you see the paintings in the Bhimbetka caves, Bhimbetka is a cave that has paintings of both the Paleolithic period as well as the Mesolithic period. Now when we look at those paintings, the paintings that belong to the Paleolithic period, they contain paintings of whatever they could see in real life. There is no abstract thinking as such. But if we see the paintings in Bhimbetka that were made during the Mesolithic period, you will find, and in Upinder Singh's book, I guess it is page number 101 or something like that, just go and see that. तो वहाँ पे ना proper diagram बना हुआ है of one of the paintings that is made. In that we can see कि किस तरीके से they are also drawing symbols which generally are not related to whatever they could see by their naked eye in real life. So that shows evolution of symbols. तो यहाँ पर क्या है? What is a symbolic shift? In the Neolithic period, we are seeing more and more symbols that are associated with fertility. For example, in the Chalcolithic period, we are going to see about mother goddess. So proto-mother goddess, humped bull, that was used again in agriculture. So these kind of symbols are gradually developing. Along with that, I definitely told you about religion. Also, there is something called emergence of ritual spaces. This is another very important. For example, in southern India, there are evidence of large ash mounds. Ash mounds is mostly it is cow dung was there, and they burned those cow dung, so it was kind of a large heap of ashes. So we are going to discuss about this in details, but just for now, remember that ash mounds have been found in this southern India, and it indicates that it might have been part of some community ritual. Understood? So the concept of ritual is also developing during this period, and this is also a shift from the earlier periods. So these are thought to be part of communal rituals. Feasting related ho sakta hai that I told you about burning of that ash mounds and all. Maybe it was used for some kind of feasting activity or so. So this is there. Now let us discuss the case study of Mehergarh. For this question as such, you don't need to write it in the details, but just understand this and use it as an example as and when required. Why? Because Mehergarh जो site है उसमें जो भी मैंने अभी तक changes बताया, that is clearly evident in that particular site. How? See, पहली बात, मेहरगढ़ कहाँ है? It is in the Balochistan area and it provides continuous records. ठीक है? What are the changes that can be seen? We can see a transition from this hunting gathering to more mobile lifestyle to sedentary lifestyle, because in Mehergarh, in the excavations, we see shifts from huts to mud brick houses and granaries. समझ में आया? जो लिंक मैंने बताया, पहले हट्स में रह रहे सेमी परमानेंट, then that has become more permanent settlements. Mud से बना हुआ settlement हमें मिल रहा है, mud bricks, and from there what we also have emergence of granaries, because that shows that now you have surplus food production, so they need something to store the food. Granaries are not found in the Mesolithic period. Next what we see is there is domestication process. Domestication process, इसमें I have mentioned the name of these two historians, ठीक है? They say that who excavated the site, इन्होंने मेहरगढ़ जो site है उसको excavate किया था. They say that मेहरगढ़ में bones of wild animals, शुरू के stages में they find bones of wild animals, but gradually as they excavate they find bones of much smaller animals, for example sheep, goat. That shows that initially they focused on hunting larger animals, gradually they shifted to keeping goat and sheep which could be easily tamed and domesticated, and it was their bone. That's why a large number of their bones have been found. Next we move to, okay, and also one more thing, remember about this fertile crescent. Fertile crescent क्या है ना? Fertile crescent earlier ऐसा माना जाता था, many historians used to think कि Neolithic period in India is part of a diffusion. मतलब बाहर से fertile crescent is an area जहाँ पे this we had this Mesopotamian civilization, मतलब basically Egypt, Syria, इजिप्ट हो गया, सीरिया, जॉर्डन, लीबिया, इन सारे एरियाज को मिला करके ना एक काइंड ऑफ क्रिसेंट शेप बन रहा है, जहां पर ये बोल रहे हैं कि रिवर जो नाइल वगैरह है उससे इट वाज अ वेरी फर्टाइल एरिया. ठीक है? वहां पे इट इज सेड दैट वहां पे ये नियोलिथिक पीरियड का फार्मिंग, एग्रीकल्चर वगैरह स्टार्ट हुआ है, एंड दे यूज्ड टू थिंक दैट इट इज दोज पीपल हु हैड डिफ्यूजन हुआ था, वहां से लोग यहाँ पर आए थे एंड वहां से हमने सीखा था हाउ टू डू बेसिकली एग्रीकल्चर एंड ऑल दैट. बट नाउ दैट थ्योरी हैज बीन पुट असाइड डेफिनेटली, बिकॉज हम जब नेक्स्ट वीडियो में पढ़ेंगे अबाउट द रीजनल कल्चर्स ऑफ द नियोलिथिक पीरियड, वी विल सी हाउ इट वॉज मच मोर यूनिक and how each culture differed from the other. So if it was only that particular people who had come here and they spread it, so South India में भी तो same होना चाहिए था, Southern India में, Eastern India में similar होना चाहिए था. That does not happen. ठीक है? There are several regional differences. We are going to see in the next video. So this thing proves that diffusionist model जो था that was incorrect. ये हमें मेहरगढ़ से पता चल रहा है. नेक्स्ट इज क्राफ्ट स्पेशलाइजेशन एंड ट्रेड. मेहरगढ़ में इट वॉज नॉट एन आइसोलेटेड विलेज. डेफिनेटली व्हाट हैपेंस इज इन द मेहरगढ़ द एक्सकवेशंस हैव फाउंड कि वहाँ पे लापिस लजूली, फॉर एग्जांपल लापिस लजूली विच वॉज फाउंड इन अफगानिस्तान एरिया. हमारे ये क्या है? ये बलूचिस्तान में लोकेटेड है. सो वी हैव फाउंड लापिस लजूली विच डेफिनेटली हैड कम फ्रॉम अफगानिस्तान. फिर टर्कोइज जो कि ईरान वाले एरिया से आ रहा है. शेल्स जो कि अरेबियन सी एरिया से आ रहा है. दिस इंडिकेट्स दैट दे वर नॉट ओनली इन्वॉल्व्ड इन एग्रीकल्चर, दे वर ऑल्सो इन्वॉल्व्ड इन लॉन्ग डिस्टेंस trade, right? So that also proves one of the evolution theories, that changes that we saw and read earlier. Next again, tool technology. Tool technology found evolution of from microliths to polished basically tools. Next is early dentistry. Very important, dentistry क्या है? Dentistry basically वहाँ पे जो skeletons मिले हैं, we see that many drillings etc are there in the teeth. That shows a kind of early awareness of human physiology. Okay, so human physiology and human health. That is another very important thing, a shift from the Mesolithic to the Neolithic age. That also improves our theory of that gradually life expectancy of the people was also increasing because of increasingly getting control over nature and not just being products of nature. Burial practices and belief systems also show that there was evolution, there was social stratification increase हो रहा है, very important, social stratification and emergence of class. For example, the people who had control over larger farming areas, they became richer. The people who did, the groups who engaged in trade, there were some groups who got more profit from trade and some gained lesser profit. So now there is a concept of people who are much more, and as well as we have the concept of private property now. So societies are gradually becoming much more complex. And now what is happening, there are people who have more resources in their control. There are some people who have lesser resources under control. So this social stratification and gradual emergence of class is happening in the society. Okay, very important. That we can also see, that we can see from the graves. For example, we have certain graves and burials jahan pe they used to have a belief in life after death. So what they used to do is they used to put some grave goods. For example, there were some microliths, there would be some pottery, and along with that there were some graves jahan pe hame lapis lazuli and precious stones वगैरह हमें देखने को मिल रहा है, some kind of jewelry, whatever was their concept, that also is being found. Some graves do not have it, some graves have it. Some graves also have animals that these domesticated animals, for example young goat or sheep buried in that shows they could afford it. Understood? So another evidence to support that there was emergence of social class and society getting stratified. Okay, here one more thing is this Ian Hodder, he had given the concept of symbolic revolution. इसका डिफरेंस ये है ना कि हमारे पास वी गॉर्डन चाइल्ड एंड देयर विल बी सेवरल अदर्स who have basically said कि पहले क्या आया, पहले it was food surplus, that led to other changes and that led to emergence of symbols as well. Now what he has said is कि नहीं, it was symbolism which developed earlier. For example, Mesolithic period में भी हमने क्या देखा था, we had seen some emergence of symbolism. He said कि symbolic development, symbols के संग associate करना had started much earlier than food production. Just some further points कि अगर ऐसा यूज करना पड़ा हमें आंसर में तो you know basically what this means. ठीक है, symbolic revolution किस context में यूज हो रहा है यहाँ पर in the Neolithic period. Next we come to, so now we saw about the changes, but the question said examine. So we also have to see some counter views, right? That whether it was that views that suggest that this particular period was not exactly as revolutionary as we say in terms of sudden development. Revolution to tha. Remember, the question did not ask the question did not ask whether it was a revolution or not. The question had said the Neolithic age was a revolution. Let us read the question again. It said that Neolithic age represents a revolution due to significant changes that took place during this particular period. यहाँ पर ये नहीं पूछ रहा है लेकिन कि revolution था या नहीं था. यहाँ पर they have said that it was a revolution, and this is generally agreed that yes it was a revolution, but not in the sense that V Gordon Childe ने जिस sense में exactly बोला था, या V Gordon Childe भी उतना ज़्यादा उनका भी सेंस अलग था. रेवोल्यूशन मतलब देयर इज अ सडन एंड शार्प break from the past. So here what the counter argument is, it was not a sudden break from the past, but definitely the changes were so profound that human civilization can no longer go back to the period as it was in the Mesolithic age. So based on the fundamental intensity of the changes, we can definitely say that this particular period was a revolution, right? So let us see about the counter arguments that have been given. So here in the counter argument, the critics of the revolution theory, what they say is gradualism over sudden changes. They say that there are some sites where we see the transition from Mesolithic to Neolithic was gradual. Why? Because for a long period of time, these two are coexisting. Right? So this is one criticism. Second is regional variability. They say that ऐसा नहीं है कि Neolithic revolution हम बोल रहे हैं मतलब एक दिन में sudden change हो रहा है. There are some regions जहाँ पे when Neolithic developments were going on in one particular site, there were several other sites where still they were living in the Mesolithic lifestyle, right? So there were regional variability. Next, we have the theory of broad spectrum and adaptive model. Do go and see the Mesolithic video, where I have talked about this broad spectrum theory of the Mesolithic period, because इस particular time पे जिस तरीके से V Gordon Childe is important for understanding the Neolithic period. Similarly, Kent Flannery is important to understand the changes that happened in the Mesolithic period, and उनका ही theory है this broad spectrum theory, how basically our knowledge of flora and fauna expanded, and how that is he basically said that there was population increase, and as a result of population increase, this forced basically बहुत सारे groups हैं, तो there were some groups who occupied resource rich areas, and there were some groups who had to settle down for less so resource rich areas. So these groups जिनके पास इतना resource rich areas नहीं थे, they had to experiment with different varieties of food that were available, जो कि हो सकता है before this they were not eating, right? So they broadened the spectrum of the flora and fauna that was consumed by man, okay, or as well as the knowledge. Just go and see that video for details. So what he says is that gradually people adapted and it was not sudden. And very important is the cost of agriculture. देखो, V. Gordon Childe has also said ना कि ये progress था, but इस चीज को इन्होंने challenge किया है. They have said that was it really a progress? Because if we see, because of the advent of agriculture, people selectively started growing certain foods. For example, wheat. Let us assume they selectively started growing wheat, and that reduced our dependence on other sources. For example, some millets. I'm just giving an example to help you understand the theory. What it means is the diversification of food that was there in the Mesolithic period, उनका जो diet में diversification था, that used to provide them various kind of nutrients and nutrition. Now because of advent of agriculture, we have more, the diversification on diet is much more reducing. So even though food availability increases, but the nutrition profile of the food is declining. So exactly calling it as progress completely is not right. Okay, so that is also one of the challenges. Now remember this, I have mentioned the name of some historians जिनके opinions आपको पता होना चाहिए. For example, Gordon Childe, and the name of his book is Man Makes Himself. Then we have Brainwood, we have Kent Flannery, we have Ian Hodder. Just go and read about them a little bit. This brings us to the conclusion. Now our conclusion, how it should be. हमने एक बहुत अच्छा impact बनाया. We raised the bar through our introduction. We raised the bar through our body. Now our conclusion cannot be, flat. Our conclusion has to encompass our opinion that we have given. So conclusion में सबसे पहले हम क्या लिखेंगे? We will say that why, based on the, we have already discussed the changes. So we will say that based on the above changes, we can say that this particular period was a revolution, but this period was not a revolution in the sense of sudden changes. This period was a revolution in the sense that the changes were so profound that human civilization could no longer go back to the period that was before these changes, to the lifestyle that was before these changes. That is there. And then finally what we will say is कि थोड़ा impactful एक line से हम end करेंगे. Let us see how I have written. Neolithic Age, this is just an example. The best conclusion is going to be written by you, and how that is going to happen by writing answers again and again. Okay, and again I'm saying join the Telegram channel. Do not stop preparing for optional, because your optional subject holds a considerable marks in the prelims. So do not stop optional preparation, but rationalize it. Follow the daily targets that I give in that particular on my Telegram channel. That will require just 2 hours. Do that. Utilize only those 2 hours to write and keep and see some videos and add to the notes. It is going to give you a very big edge over other aspirants. Trust me, just follow it over some time, you will notice the change. Okay, so Neolithic Age was indeed a revolution, not in the sense of sudden events, but in the irreversibility of the change that it triggered. It laid the foundation for state, private property, and organized religion. As V. Gordon Childe had said, famously noted, that man made himself, transitioning from a creature of nature to a creator of his own material world. समझ में आया? तो ये जिस तरीके का लिखने का मतलब एक काइंड ऑफ क्या बोलते हैं, आंसर राइटिंग इज एन आर्ट एंड दैट यू डेवलप ग्रेजुअली. सो ऐसा आंसर राइटिंग मेरा एक दिन में डेवलप नहीं हुआ है. आई हैव बीन टीचिंग फॉर ओवर 7 years now. So it took time for me also when I was an aspirant to write again and again and to reach this level of writing, right? And you can write even better. So thank you. Do join the Telegram channel and subscribe to this. Subscribe to this channel. Link will be, and the Telegram link will be given in the description. So thank you.